At my wife's holiday party, her colleague bragged about his married mistress, not knowing I was her husband. 3 weeks later, my son collapsed. The hospital test that saved his life revealed a truth that destroyed everything I thought I knew. Then I found her secret storage unit filled with $80,000 worth of designer bags she'd never worn at home. My name is Ryan Cooper. I'm 42 years old, and for the past 16 years I've worked as a telecommunications engineer for Verizon. The job pays well, nearly 6 figures with overtime, but it demands everything. 80-hour weeks aren't uncommon. I justified it all by telling myself I was building something for my family. My wife Amanda, who everyone calls Mandy, seemed to understand. She worked as a financial controller at a mid-sized tech firm downtown. We had 2 kids, Lily, 5 years old with her mother's blonde hair, and Jack, 3, who had my stubborn chin. That December evening started normally enough. Mandy spent 2 hours getting ready, which should have been my first clue. She wore a black dress I'd never seen before, something elegant that hugged her figure in ways that made me remember why I fell for her in the first place. Her makeup was flawless, her hair styled in soft waves. "You look incredible," I told her as we walked to the car. She barely glanced at me. "Thanks. Just don't embarrass me tonight, okay? These people are important for my career." The venue was some upscale hotel ballroom in downtown Seattle, all crystal chandeliers, and servers carrying trays of hors d'oeuvres I couldn't pronounce. Mandy immediately tensed up when we walked in, her eyes scanning the crowd with an intensity that made my stomach tighten. She introduced me to maybe 3 people before disappearing into a cluster of colleagues, leaving me stranded near the bar. I nursed a beer, watching her work the room. She was animated in a way I hadn't seen in months, laughing at jokes, touching arms, completely in her element. I felt like a piece of furniture she'd dragged along for appearances. Then this guy approached me. Tall, athletic build, wearing an expensive suit that screamed sales executive. He had that easy confidence of someone who'd never been told no. "Hey man, you look as thrilled to be here as I am," he said with a grin, extending his hand. "Craig Williams, marketing department." I shook it. "Ryan, I'm here with my wife. She works in finance." "Ah, the +1 club," Craig laughed, already a few drinks deep judging by the way he swayed slightly. "I get it. These things are brutal. Open bar helps though, right?" We made small talk about sports, the weather, typical guy stuff. He seemed friendly enough, just another corporate drone like everyone else here. Then he leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "Can I tell you something?" Man to man. His eyes had this gleam, like he was about to share the world's greatest secret. I shrugged. "Sure. I've got this thing going on," he said, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "With someone from work. Keeps life interesting, you know." Every instinct told me to walk away, but something kept me rooted. "That's so." "Yeah, she's married actually," Craig continued, his words starting to slur together. "Makes it exciting. The sneaking around, the risk. Her husband's always working, completely checked out. Poor guy has no clue what his wife does when he's away." My chest tightened. "Sound complicated?" "Nah, she makes it easy. Smart woman. Knows how to keep things separate. Acts all professional here at work, but after hours." He whistled low. "Total firecracker. We've got this whole system worked out. She tells her husband she's working late, and we meet at this place across town. Been going on for almost a year now." The room felt smaller, hotter. I forced my voice to stay casual. "Her husband really doesn't suspect anything." Craig laughed, loud enough that a few heads turned. "The guy's clueless. She's got him wrapped around her finger. Plays the good wife at home, then comes to me for what she's really missing. It's perfect. What's she missing?" I asked, my jaw tight. "Excitement. Passion. Someone who actually pays attention to her." He took another swig of his drink. "She says her husband's married to his job. Works all the time. Barely notices she exists. Can't really blame her for looking elsewhere." I wanted to punch him. Instead, I took a slow breath and asked, "What does she do here?" "At the company." "Financial controller," Craig said. Then his eyes lit up like he'd just remembered something hilarious. "Actually, funny story, she's here tonight. Want me to point her out?" "You'd never guess it's her. She looks so innocent." My heart stopped. Everything around me blurred except for Craig's face, still grinning like he just told the funniest joke in the world. At that moment, across the room, Mandy looked over and caught my eye. She smiled, That same smile she gave me every morning before I left for work. Craig followed my gaze. Oh man, that's her right there. Amanda Cooper. See what I mean? Looks like butter wouldn't melt, but trust me, that's my wife, I said quietly. The color drained from his face. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. What? Amanda Cooper. That's my wife. I'm her husband. I set down my beer carefully, afraid I might crush the glass. The clueless one who works all the time. Craig stumbled backward, nearly knocking over a waiter. Listen, man, I had no idea. I swear, she never said her husband's name. I didn't know. But I was already walking away, my hands shaking, my mind replaying every word he'd said. Across the room, Mandy was still smiling, still playing her part perfectly. She had no idea that her colleague had just told her husband everything, completely unaware of who he was talking to. The party continued around me, music and laughter and clinking glasses. But all I could hear was Craig's voice echoing in my head. Been going on for almost a year now. I didn't confront Mandy at the party. Part of me wanted to march across that ballroom and expose everything right there in front of her colleagues and boss. But I'd learned a long time ago that emotion, without strategy, just makes you look weak. So I stayed quiet, watching her from across the room while Craig disappeared into the crowd like the coward he was. Mandy found me 20 minutes later, sliding her arm through mine with practiced ease. Having fun? She asked, her voice light and cheerful. I looked at her carefully styled hair, her perfect makeup, that dress she'd spent 2 hours putting on. All for him. It's been enlightening, I said. She didn't catch the edge of my tone. Good. Listen, I need to stay a bit longer, network with some people. You don't mind, do you? Every word out of her mouth felt like another lie stacking on top of the foundation of deception she'd built. I want to ask her how she did it, how she looked me in the eye and smiled while sleeping with another man. Instead, I just nodded. Sure. Take your time. The drive home 2 hours later was silent. Mandy scrolled through her phone, probably texting him, while I gripped the steering wheel and focused on not wrapping us around a telephone pole. My mind raced through the past year, re-examining every late night at work, every business trip, every time she'd seemed distant or distracted. You're quiet, Mandy finally said as we pulled into our driveway. Just tired. Inside, Isabella Torres, our nanny, was waiting in the living room. She'd been with us for 2 years, a quiet woman in her early 50s who'd come from Mexico and sent most of her paycheck back to family in Guadalajara. The kids adored her, and honestly, she ran our household better than Mandy and I combined. How were they? Mandy asked, already heading upstairs. Good. Both sleeping, Isabella said softly. But she was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Concern, maybe. Or guilt. After Mandy disappeared into our bedroom, Isabella approached me hesitantly. Mr. Cooper, I need to talk to you, she said, her accent thick with nervousness. About Mrs. Cooper. My stomach dropped. What about her? Isabella's hands twisted together. I should have told you sooner, but she said she would have me deported if I said anything. I'm so sorry, but I can't stay quiet anymore. The room spun. What are you talking about? Her eyes filled with tears. That man, Craig. He's been coming here. To the house. When you're at work. I've seen them together many times. And just like that, the knife Craig had stuck in my back at the party twisted deeper. I sat down heavily on the couch, my legs suddenly unable to hold me up. Isabella remained standing, wringing her hands, tears streaming down her face. Tell me everything, I said quietly. She took a shaky breath. It started maybe 10 months ago. Mrs. Cooper, she told me one day that a colleague would come by to drop off work documents. But when he arrived, they didn't look at any papers. They went upstairs to your bedroom. My hands clenched into fists. How many times? Many times, Mr. Cooper. Once a week, sometimes more. Always on Tuesdays and Thursdays when you work the late tower installations. Isabella's voice broke. I wanted to tell you so many times, but she caught me looking upset one day. She pulled me aside and said if I told you anything, she would call immigration and report that my papers were fake. She said I would be deported and never see my family again. Your papers aren't fake though, right? No, they're real. But I was so scared. I have 3 children back home, depending on the money I send. I couldn't risk it. She looked at me with desperate eyes. I'm so sorry, Mr. Cooper. I should have been braver. I stood up and put a hand on her shoulder. Isabella, you did what you had to do to protect your family. I don't blame you. But I need you to tell me everything you remember. Dates, times, anything they said. Over the next hour, Isabella told me details that made my stomach turn. Craig had been in my house, in my bed, with my wife while my children played downstairs. While I was working 70-hour weeks to pay for this house, this life, Mandy was bringing her lover into our home. There's more, Isabella said hesitantly. I noticed Mrs. Cooper buying expensive things. Designer purses, jewelry, nice clothes. But she never wore them here. She would take them in her car and I never saw them again. Where did she keep them? I don't know. But I heard her on the phone once, talking to someone about a storage unit. She was laughing about how you would never find it. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. Mandy had already left for her office, kissing me on the cheek like everything was normal. I waited until her car disappeared down the street. Then I started searching. It took 2 hours, but I found what I was looking for in her locked desk drawer. I'd never been the snooping type, but desperate times called for bolt cutters from the garage. Inside were bank statements for an account I didn't know existed, credit card bills for a card in her name only, and a key with a tag from Safekeep Storage. The statements showed charges that made my blood boil. Thousands of dollars at Nordstrom, Tiffany, Chanel, hotel rooms downtown, expensive dinners. And then I saw it. A withdrawal for $45,000 from our joint savings account 6 months ago. The money my mother had left me when she died last year. Money we'd agreed to save for Lily and Jack's college funds. I sat there staring at the evidence of her betrayal, and something inside me shifted. The hurt was still there, but now it was joined by something colder, more calculating. She'd stolen from our children's future to fund her affair. She'd threatened Isabella to keep her quiet. She'd turned our home into her playground. I took photos of everything with my phone, then carefully put it all back exactly as I'd found it. Mandy couldn't know I was building a case. Not yet. The Safekeep Storage facility was in a sketchy part of town I'd never had reason to visit. I found Unit 247 in the back corner, used the key I'd copied that morning, and stepped inside. The space was maybe 10 by 10 feet, and it was packed with shopping bags and boxes. I turned on the light and felt my jaw clench. This was where she'd hidden everything. I started going through it systematically, documenting everything with my phone camera. 15 designer handbags, some still with price tags attached. A Hermes Birkin bag that probably cost more than my truck. Chanel, Gucci, Louis Vuitton. Jewelry boxes from Tiffany and Cartier, containing necklaces, bracelets, and earrings I'd never seen her wear. Shoes, dozens of pairs of Christian Louboutin heels with their signature red soles. Each item felt like another slap in the face. While I'd been eating packed sandwiches on cell towers to save money, she'd been spending thousands on luxury goods to impress her lover. In the back corner, I found something that made everything else pale in comparison. A shoebox filled with receipts and a handwritten ledger in Mandy's neat script. She'd been tracking her spending, probably to make sure she didn't go over some budget she'd set for herself. The total, written in red ink at the bottom of the last page, made me sit down hard on a box. $87,340. $87,000. That wasn't just my mother's inheritance. She'd been skimming from our accounts for almost a year. I checked the dates against my phone calendar. Every time I'd worked a double shift. Every holiday I'd missed with the kids. Every time I told them we couldn't afford something they wanted. She'd been here, buying luxury items to wear for Craig. I photographed everything. Every receipt. Every page of her ledger. Every designer label. Then I loaded some of the most expensive items into my truck. Not to steal them, but to keep them safe. Evidence for the divorce I was now certain would happen. As I locked the unit and drove away, my phone rang. Mandy's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, babe," she said when I answered, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Can you pick up dinner on your way home? I'm running late at work." "Sure," I said, my voice flat. "No problem. You okay? You sound weird. Just tired. Long day. Well, try to perk up before you get home. The kids will want to see their dad smile." I hung up and gripped the steering wheel. She had no idea the storm that was coming, but I wasn't ready to unleash it yet. I needed more. I needed everything to be airtight, so she couldn't worm her way out or turn this around on me. When I got home that night with pizza, Mandy greeted me with a kiss. Lily and Jack ran to hug my legs. Isabella gave me a knowing look from the kitchen. I smiled and played the part. But inside, I was already 3 steps ahead, planning exactly how I was going to dismantle the life she'd built on lies. 2 weeks after discovering the storage unit, I made a decision that had been eating at me since that night at the party. I needed to know if Jack was mine. The thought had crept in slowly, poisoning everything. Jack was 3 years old. Mandy's affair with Craig had been going on for almost a year, but who knew how long before that? She'd been distant for longer than I could remember. And Jack, sweet, stubborn Jack with his dark hair and brown eyes that looked nothing like Lily's blonde and blue. What if he wasn't mine? I ordered a paternity test kit online, paid extra for expedited shipping and discreet packaging. When it arrived, I waited until Mandy took Lily to her dance class one Saturday morning. Isabella was off for the weekend. It was just me and Jack in the house. "Hey, buddy, come here," I called to him from the kitchen. Jack toddled over, clutching his toy truck. "Play, Daddy." "In a minute, champ. First, open up. Say ah." I swabbed the inside of his cheek quickly, efficiently, before he could protest. "Good job. Here, have a cookie." I swabbed my own cheek, sealed everything in a prepaid envelope, and drove it to the post office immediately. The lab promised results in 5 to 7 business days. Those were the longest days of my life. I went through the motions: work, home, dinner, bedtime routines. But every time I looked at Jack, I felt this horrible mix of love and doubt. What if he wasn't mine? What if I'd spent 3 years loving a child who belonged to Craig? And worse, what if I found out he wasn't mine and realized it didn't matter because I loved him anyway? Meanwhile, I've been quietly gathering more evidence. I'd hire my own private investigator, a guy named Tom who'd been recommended by a lawyer I consulted. Tom had been following Mandy and Craig for a week, documenting their meetings at hotels, restaurants, and the apartment Craig kept across town. "Your wife's not trying very hard to hide it," Tom told me during one of our meetings at a coffee shop far from my neighborhood. He slid a folder across the table. "They meet every Tuesday and Thursday like clockwork. Sometimes Fridays too." The photos made my stomach turn. Mandy and Craig holding hands as they walked into the Fairmont, kissing in his car in a parking garage, entering his apartment, building together at 2 in the afternoon. "There's something else you should know," Tom said carefully. "I did some digging into your wife's work situation. Word is, there's an internal investigation at her company. Financial irregularities." My head snapped up. "What kind of irregularities?" "The kind that involves money going missing from corporate accounts. I've got a contact in their IT department who says the auditors have been all over her files for the past month." I sat back, processing this. "She's stealing from her company?" "Looks that way. Can't say for sure, but where there's smoke." Tom shrugged. "Thought you should know. Could be useful in the divorce." Divorce. The word still felt unreal, even though I'd been planning for it every day. That night, Mandy was in an unusually good mood. She'd made dinner, actual dinner, not takeout, and kept trying to engage me in conversation about her day. I gave her nothing, just one-word responses while pushing food around my plate. "You've been so distant lately," she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "Is something wrong at work?" I looked at her, really looked at her. She was good at this, the concerned wife act. Her face showed nothing but genuine worry. If I didn't know better, I'd think she actually cared. "Work's fine," I said, pulling my hand away. "Just tired. You're always tired these days." She sighed. "Maybe we should plan a vacation. Just the two of us. My mom could watch the kids for a long weekend." The audacity of it almost made me laugh. She wanted to go on vacation while sleeping with Craig, while stealing from her company, while potentially raising another man's child under my roof. "Maybe," I said noncommittally. 5 days later, the email came. I was at work, up on a cell tower doing routine maintenance, when my phone buzzed. The subject line read, "DNA test results, confidential." I climbed down so fast, I nearly slipped on the ladder, sat in my truck with shaking hands, and opened the attachment. The words blurred together at first, but then one phrase jumped out with crystal clarity. "Probability of paternity, 0%. The alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the child." Jack wasn't mine. I sat there in my truck, parked outside a cell tower in the middle of nowhere, and felt something inside me break. Not Jack. Not my little boy who called me daddy and ran to me every night for bedtime stories. Not the kid I'd walked around the house at 3 in the morning when he had colic. Not my son, except he was my son. DNA didn't change 3 years of love. But Mandy, She'd let me believe a lie. She'd watched me bond with a child who wasn't mine and said nothing. She'd stolen that choice from me. I called Tom immediately. I need you to find out everything about Craig Williams, I said, my voice shaking with barely controlled rage. Where he lives, where he banks, if he has any idea he has a son. Everything. What happened? Tom asked. Just do it, and step up the surveillance. I want to know every move they make. That night, I looked at Jack differently. Not because I loved him less. I could never love him less. But because every time I saw his face, I was reminded of Mandy's betrayal in a whole new way. The investigation into Mandy's embezzlement broke wide open 3 weeks after I got the DNA results. I was at work when my phone rang from an unknown number. Mr. Cooper? This is Detective Sarah Michaels from the Seattle Police Department, White Collar Crimes Division. I need to speak with you about your wife, Amanda Cooper. My stomach dropped. What about her? We're investigating financial fraud at her employer. I understand you share bank accounts with Mrs. Cooper. I'd like to meet with you to discuss some transactions we flagged. We met the next day at a bland government building downtown. Detective Michaels was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who laid out everything in meticulous detail. Mandy had been creating fake vendor accounts and approving payments to them for over 8 months. The money had been funneled into a personal account she'd opened under a slightly different name, Amanda L. Cooper instead of Amanda Rose Cooper. The total was $32,000. We believe she used the funds for personal expenses, Michaels said, showing me statements. Luxury goods, hotels, dining. Were you aware of any of this? No, I said honestly, but I have information that might be relevant to your case. I told her about the storage unit, the designer bags and jewelry, the ledger tracking her spending. I gave her copies of everything I'd photographed. Michaels took notes quickly. This is very helpful, Mr. Cooper. I have to ask, are you planning to divorce your wife? Yes. Then you should know that if charges are filed, it could impact any settlement negotiations. She may face jail time. I nodded slowly, processing this. Mandy wasn't just going to lose me. She was going to lose everything. That same week, my boss called me into his office. Mark Patterson had been my supervisor for 8 years, a fair guy who'd always had my back. Ryan, sit down, he said, his expression grave. We need to talk. My chest tightened. What's wrong? I've been getting calls from your wife's company's legal department. They're asking questions about you, trying to find out if you were involved in any of Amanda's activities. He held up a hand before I could speak. I told them you're one of the most honest people I know, but the optics aren't good. Corporate's nervous about the association. Are you firing me? I asked bluntly. Mark sighed. Not yet, but I'm getting pressure. If this turns into a criminal case and your name gets dragged into it, I might not have a choice. I'm sorry, Ryan. I know this isn't your fault. I left his office feeling like the world was collapsing around me. I was about to lose my wife, my job, and possibly my home. And I had 2 kids depending on me, one who wasn't even biologically mine, but who I loved like he was. When I got home that night, Mandy was pacing in the kitchen, her phone pressed to her ear. She hung up abruptly when she saw me. We need to talk, she said, her face pale. About what? The company fired me today. They're saying I stole money, but I didn't, Ryan. I swear I didn't. Someone's setting me up. I looked at her, this woman I'd married, and saw a stranger. Really? That's the story you're going with. Her eyes widened. What's that supposed to mean? It means I know everything, Amanda. The affair with Craig. The storage unit. The embezzlement. The fake accounts. All of it. The color drained from her face completely. Ow! Did you really think I wouldn't find out? I stepped closer. You got sloppy. And now it's all coming down. Ryan, please, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. My voice was cold, controlled. I want you out of this house by tomorrow. You can't kick me out. This is my home too. Watch me. I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo of the storage unit. I've got evidence of everything. The money you stole from the company. The money you took from my mother's inheritance. The affair. All of it. Mandy sank into a chair, her hands shaking. What are you going to do? I'm divorcing you, and I'm getting full custody of Lily. And Jack. Her voice was barely a whisper. I met her eyes. We both know Jack isn't mine, don't we? The way her face crumpled told me everything. Mandy refused to leave the house. For 3 days after our confrontation, we lived like hostile strangers under the same roof. She'd moved into the guest room and spent most of her time on the phone with lawyers, her parents, or crying in the bathroom. Her parents called me on the fourth day. Richard and Susan Blake, the picture-perfect Connecticut couple who'd always treated me like I wasn't quite good enough for their daughter. Ryan, what's this nonsense about divorce? Richard demanded. Amanda says you're being unreasonable. Did she tell you about Craig? About the affair she's been having for a year? Silence. Then Susan's voice, sharp and defensive. Our daughter says you've been a neglectful husband. Always working, never home. Can you blame her for seeking companionship elsewhere? I actually laughed. Companionship? Is that what we're calling adultery now? Don't take that tone with us, Richard snapped. Amanda made a mistake, but marriage is about forgiveness. You made vows, Ryan, for better or worse. She stole $45,000 from our children's college fund. She's being investigated for embezzling from her company. She let me raise another man's child while lying to my face. But sure, let's talk about my tone. That's a vicious lie. Susan's voice was shrill. Amanda would never. Believe what you want. But I'm divorcing her, and I'm getting full custody of Lily. Jack can go with his real father for all I care. I hung up before they could respond. But their call made one thing clear. Mandy had been spinning her story, painting herself as the victim. I couldn't let that stand. My lawyer, David Chun, was a bulldog of a man who specialized in high-conflict divorces. She's asking for 70% of all assets, full custody of both children, and $8,000 a month in alimony and child support, David told me during our meeting. Her lawyer's claiming you were emotionally abusive and financially controlling. That's insane. I worked to support her expensive taste while she screwed her coworker. I know. That's why we're going to bury her. David opened his briefcase. We've got the storage unit evidence showing she misappropriated marital funds. We've got the DNA test proving Jack isn't yours. We've got her company's investigation into embezzlement. And we've got Isabella's testimony about the affair. Will that be enough? It'll be enough to destroy her credibility. But Ryan, you need to be prepared. This is going to get ugly. She's desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. He was right. 2 days later, Mandy filed for a restraining order, claiming I'd threatened her and made her feel unsafe in our home. It was complete fiction, but it forced me out of my own house for 2 weeks until the hearing. I moved into a motel near the plant, existing on takeout and rage. Isabella texted me daily updates about the kids. Lily kept asking when Daddy was coming home. Jack didn't understand why I wasn't there to tuck him in. The restraining order hearing was brutal. Mandy showed up with her lawyer, a shark named Patricia Dawson who specialized in taking men to the cleaners. My client has been living in fear, Dawson told the judge. Mr. Cooper has been erratic, aggressive, and has made threats against her safety. David stood up. Your Honor, this is a transparent attempt to gain advantage in the divorce proceedings. Mr. Cooper has never threatened his wife. What he has done is uncover extensive evidence of her adultery, embezzlement, and fraud. The judge, a tired-looking woman named Barbara Wilson, reviewed the paperwork. Ms. Dawson, do you have any evidence of these threats? My client's testimony, Your Honor. That's not evidence. That's an allegation. Judge Wilson looked at Mandy. Mrs. Cooper, has your husband ever physically harmed you? No, but has he threatened to harm you in a way that a third party witnessed? Mandy hesitated. Not exactly, but the way he looks at me. I'm denying the restraining order, Judge Wilson said flatly. This appears to be a domestic dispute being weaponized in family court. Mr. Cooper, you may return to your home. We'll see both parties back here in 30 days for the preliminary custody hearing. I walked out of that courtroom feeling like I'd won a small battle in a much larger war. 3 weeks later, everything changed. I was at work, finally back on regular tower duty after my boss decided the heat from Mandy's case had died down enough, when Isabella called. Her voice was panicked. Mr. Cooper, you need to come home now. Jack is very sick. The ambulance is here. I drove 90 miles an hour back to Seattle, my heart in my throat. When I got to the hospital, Mandy was already there, pacing outside the pediatric emergency room. What happened? I demanded. He had a seizure, she said, her face streaked with tears. He was playing with Lily, and then he just collapsed. They're running tests now. We sat in the waiting room in tense silence. Whatever was between us, Jack was still the little boy we'd both raised. Biology didn't change 3 years of diapers and first words and bedtime stories. The doctor came out 2 hours later, his expression grave. Mr. and Mrs. Cooper, Jack has bacterial meningitis. It's serious, but we caught it early. We've started him on antibiotics, but the next 48 hours are critical. They moved Jack to the pediatric ICU. He looked so small in a hospital bed, tubes and wires everywhere, his face pale against the white sheets. Mandy and I took turns sitting with him, neither of us willing to leave. On the second night, around midnight, Mandy finally spoke to me. "This is my fault," she whispered, staring at Jack's sleeping face. "All of this. I destroyed our family, and now Jack's paying for it." I wanted to argue, to tell her that meningitis had nothing to do with her affair. But looking at my son, because he was still my son in every way that mattered, I felt the anger drain away, replaced by exhaustion. "He's going to be okay," I said quietly. "How do you know?" "Because he's tough. Like his dad." I paused. "Like the dad who raised him." Mandy started crying. "Ryan, I'm so sorry. For everything. For Craig, for the money, for Jack. I ruined everything good in my life." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. An email notification. I almost ignored it, but something made me check. It was from the DNA testing company. The subject line read, "Requested results, urgent." I opened it, confused. I hadn't requested any new tests. But then I saw it was a corrected report. My hand started shaking as I read. "Correction TO, previous report. Due to a laboratory error, the previous results were incorrectly reported. Corrected results show probability of paternity, 99.97%. The alleged father is not excluded as the biological father." I read it 3 times before the words made sense. Jack was mine. The lab had made a mistake. My son was my son. I looked at Mandy, then at Jack, then back at my phone. "What is it?" Mandy asked, seeing my expression. I showed her the email without a word. Her face went white, then red, then white again. "Oh my God. Ryan, I swear I didn't know. When you said he wasn't yours, I thought. I believed you. I would never." "So the affair started after Jack was born," I said slowly, pieces clicking together. She nodded miserably. "About 10 months after. I was exhausted. You were working all the time, and Craig was just there, paying attention to me, making me feel like more than just a tired mom." "So you slept with him?" "Yes." Her voice was barely audible. I sat there holding my phone, watching my son breathe, and felt the last piece of my marriage die. The DNA error had given me back my son, but it didn't change anything about Mandy's betrayal. If anything, knowing she'd been faithful during my pregnancy made the affair afterward feel even more calculated. "It doesn't matter," I finally said. "Lab error or not, we're done. I'm keeping both kids, and you're going to have to explain to them someday why Mommy doesn't live with them anymore." Mandy opened her mouth to argue, but then Jack stirred, his eyes fluttering open. "Daddy," he whispered. I moved to his bedside immediately, taking a small hand. "I'm here, buddy. Daddy's here. Mommy too." Mandy came to the other side of the bed. "Yes, baby. We're both here." For those few minutes, we were a family again. But it was a lie, and we both knew it. Jack recovered from the meningitis after 5 days in the hospital. The corrected DNA results had given me back my son, but they'd also forced me to recalibrate everything. Mandy's affair had started when Jack was 10 months old, not before. She'd been faithful through the pregnancy and those exhausting early months, then found Craig when she felt neglected and overwhelmed. It didn't excuse what she'd done, but it complicated the narrative I'd built in my head. 2 weeks after Jack came home, Mandy showed up at the house unannounced. I opened the door to find her standing there with 2 suitcases and bloodshot eyes. "I need to get some things," she said quietly. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. She walked past me, avoiding eye contact, and went upstairs. I followed, not trusting her alone in the house. She packed methodically, clothes, toiletries, photo albums. Her hand shook as she folded a sweater. "Where are you going?" I asked from the doorway. "My parents' place in Connecticut. The company fired me officially last week. The embezzlement charges are moving forward. My lawyer says I'm probably looking at probation and restitution, maybe jail time if the prosecutor pushes for it." She laughed bitterly. "Craig won't return my calls. Turns out he's not interested in a woman facing criminal charges." "Shocking," I said dryly. She turned to face me, tears streaming down her face. "I know you hate me." I deserve that. But please, Ryan, don't punish the kids because of what I did. They need their mother. They need a mother who puts them first. That's not you. I can change. I will change. You should have changed before you destroyed our family. She zipped up her suitcase and walked past me, pausing at the door. For what it's worth, I am sorry. About all of it. Especially Jack. When you showed me that first DNA test, I believed it. I was ready to tell you everything about Craig, to come clean. But then the corrected results came, and I realized I'd been faithful longer than I thought I'd been. She wiped her eyes. Doesn't make what I did any better, I know. No, it doesn't. After she left, I sat in the empty house and felt the weight of everything settle on my shoulders. I had the kids, the house, and my job, barely. But I was also alone, facing single parenthood and a court battle that could drain what little savings I had left. Isabella found me there an hour later. Mr. Cooper, are you okay? No, I admitted. But I will be. 3 days later, I got a call from a woman I didn't know. Mr. Cooper, my name is Ella Bancroft. I'm a friend of Tom's, your private investigator. I frowned. Okay. Tom mentioned you might need help. I run a support group for people going through difficult divorces. I thought you might want to attend a meeting. I'm not really a support group kind of guy. I understand. But we also have resources, financial planning, legal advice, childcare networks, things that might help you get back on your feet. Something in her voice made me reconsider. Where do you meet? That Thursday, I attended my first meeting. It was in a church basement, about 15 people sitting in a circle sharing their stories. Ella ran the group with quiet efficiency, a woman in her early 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it brief. My name is Ryan. My wife cheated, stole money, and almost cost me my kids. I'm here because I don't know what the hell I'm doing anymore. The group nodded sympathetically. No judgment, no platitudes, just understanding. After the meeting, Ella approached me. You did good tonight. Showing up is half the battle. The other half, figuring out who you are without her. She smiled. It gets easier, I promise. Over the next few weeks, I found myself looking forward to those Thursday meetings. The group became a lifeline, people who understood what I was going through without me having to explain. And Ella, there was something about her that made me feel less alone. But I wasn't ready for anything more than friendship. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. The final divorce hearing was 10 months after that night at Mandy's work party. Judge Wilson reviewed all the evidence. The affair, the embezzlement conviction. Mandy had taken a plea deal for 2 years probation and restitution. The storage unit, the lies. This is one of the clearer cases I've seen, Judge Wilson said from the bench. Mrs. Cooper, your actions demonstrate a pattern of dishonesty and financial irresponsibility that makes you unsuitable for primary custody. Mandy's lawyer tried to argue, but the judge cut her off. Mr. Cooper is awarded primary physical and legal custody of both minor children. Mrs. Cooper will have supervised visitation twice monthly. The marital home remains with Mr. Cooper. Mrs. Cooper will pay 65% of the children's expenses and reimburse Mr. Cooper $45,000 for the misappropriated inheritance funds. It was over. I'd won. Mandy sat at the defendant's table, crying silently. Her parents, who'd flown in for the hearing, looked shell-shocked. They'd finally seen the evidence during the trial, all of it, and their perfect daughter's image had shattered. Richard approached me in the hallway afterward. I owe you an apology, he said stiffly. We didn't know the extent of what Amanda had done. You didn't want to know? I corrected. You heard what you wanted to hear. He nodded slowly. Can we still see the grandchildren? That's up to the courts and their supervised visitation schedule with Mandy. But I won't keep Lily and Jack from knowing you if you can be honest with them. 8 months later, things are different. Better. I got a promotion at work. My boss finally recognized that the divorce drama was over and I was back to being reliable. The raise helped me rebuild my savings and afford to keep Isabella full-time. Lily was thriving in first grade. Jack had started preschool and was already making friends. They saw Mandy twice a month at a supervised facility, and while it wasn't ideal, they were adjusting. And Ella, she'd become a good friend. We'd gone to coffee a few times. Nothing romantic, just two people who understood what it meant to rebuild after devastation. She'd been through her own divorce 3 years earlier, and had come out stronger. You thinking about dating again? She asked one afternoon while we watched our kids play at the park. Her daughter was close to Lily's age. Maybe eventually, I said. Right now I'm focused on the kids. That's healthy. She smiled. But don't close yourself off forever, Ryan. You deserve to be happy. I watched Jack run across the playground, his laughter carrying on the breeze. Lily was pushing him on the swings, her face bright with joy. They were happy, stable, loved. I'm happy, I said, and realized I meant it. The betrayal still hurts sometimes, late at night when the house was quiet. But it was a dull ache now, not the sharp pain it had been. Mandy had taken a lot from me. My trust, my marriage, my savings. But she hadn't taken what mattered most. My kids still call me daddy. They still ran to me when they were scared or hurt or excited. They still looked at me like I hung the moon. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of Lily and Jack playing together. They were my future now, not her. And that future looked pretty damn good.